Okay, I think, are we ready to begin? Hello everyone, I'm delighted to be here moderating this panel of very distinguished speakers. Our subject for this panel is natural gas, downstream, and services. This is a subject that I believe encompasses a lot of important themes, especially in Iraq's oil and gas sector today. Foremost on my mind, and this is something that Oil Minister Thamar Ghadban said is one of his priorities as well, is Iraq's gas processing capacity. We have seen in recent years slow and steady gains in this sector. The question remains, what are the future challenges for more growth? We are also in a moment in Iraq now where there is greater opportunity for power generation, for large-scale petrochemical plants, and also for industrial cities. Another question is, which opportunities ought we to pursue now? Mobilizing private investment in the refining sector continues to be another challenge. The oil ministry, as I understand it, is devising different legal frameworks to tackle this issue, but what can service companies do to contribute to that, for example? Iraq is also enjoying stable oil or is enjoying stability as a result of rebounded oil prices. So how have companies adjusted to that? What new technologies might we see enter the oil market as a result of this? So these are questions foremost on my mind as I moderate this panel. And with that, I would like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Falah Amri, to please take the stage.
Good. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for Iraqi Energy Forum for having me here. And I would like to, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to focus on, in brief, very important subject relating to the oil and gas industry. The first subject is energy demand and energy access. And then we go later to energy transition and also energy security and market stability. All these subjects linked to each other, and I think is relevant of our conference. Let me start with the economic economic background. The total size of the global economy in 2040 is projected to reach the size of 200 higher relative to 2018. At the same time, world population is expected to reach around 2 billion, an increase over 1 billion from today's level. It is expected the global energy demand to increase by around 33% by 2040. Almost 95% of the increase in energy demand in forecast to come from developing countries, with China and India continuing to lead the way. Although the total number of population or of people with access to electricity fell below 1 billion in 2017, there is much work still to be done. This is why we need to transition to a more inclusive world in which every person has access to energy. We want to see a world where no one is left behind. Also, we need more efficiency usage of energy based on the cleaner energy and technology. Therefore, if we're talking about the energy transition, therefore we all need to follow the right path to lead us to sustainable energy future. It is important to think about what an energy transition actually means. The energy transition should not be considered as a transition from one energy source to another. All sources of energy are needed to meet current and future demand, and thus mean we need mixed energy. Energy transition should bring both producers and consumers and every industry stakeholder to try and evolve this transition in the latest disruptive manner. The energy transition path leads necessary to energy trilemma, encountering issues of securing sufficient volumes of energy for the future demand growth, which needs to be achieved a sustainable way, balancing the needs of people in relation to their social welfare, the economy, and the environment. The majority and balanced consensus is that all forms of energy are required. So this is the transition period that all energy now is required. It's also vital we appreciate just what each energy source can provide in the decades ahead. We do not see any reputable outlook projecting that renewables will come anywhere close to overtaking oil and gas in the decades ahead. Renewables, including hydroelectrics, biomass, wind, solar, and geothermal energy and other renewable energy, are coming of age, with wind and solar expanding fast. But even by 2040, this is very important, by 2040, they are only estimated to make up around 20% of the globe, or 20 to 25% of the global energy mix. And this is despite astonishing growth rates for solar and wind estimated at around 7% per annum on the average through to 2040. For oil and gas, we need to recognize that the environmental challenge is not oil and gas themselves. It is the emissions that come from bringing them. Solutions can be found in technologies that reduce ultimately eliminate these emissions. We need to look for technology solutions elsewhere across the available engineers. This is why the oil industry capacity for technological innovation must be harnessed within this process. With regard to energy security, on the policy front, it is important to stress that oil industry is concerned about policies that dramatically impacted investment. With talk of the standard assets and declining values, this could potentially result in a scenario where the necessary investment may not be made, one that could increase volatility significantly and lead to a future energy shortfall. It has been estimated oil-related investment requirement at around 11 trillion in the period 2040. Furthermore, all producers there is another equally important parameter, the assurance of a steady, predictable demand. This is often overlooked by consumers, but this is a very important point for the producer, as it is important and basic security of supply. So there should be a balance between supply and demand. Economy. Over the last 30 months, so OPEC alone, with its non-OPEC partners, have continuously demonstrated utmost commitment to balance and stabilize the market in the interest of both producers and consumers. So therefore, OPEC and partners have been eager and flexible with their partners, adapting courses depending on market condition. When the market appeared squeezed to oversupply, voluntary production adjustments were adopted and implemented. And when concern regarding demand outpacing supply surfaced as the market tightened, OPEC took appropriate action. And these are the most important points that we should deliver and take care of them during the transition period of oil, to make a balance between renewables, our need for renewables and our need for oil and gas industry to continue production, but with less emissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Al-Qaini, you're up.
So I was just told, actually, there is a technical problem with the presentation, so I will just talk without the slides.
Okay.
Oh, I get a sign saying that it's fixed, I think.
Are we good to go? Yes, okay. Seems like we are.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the opportunity. I would like to give you an introduction and update on Basra Gas Company. Who are we? We are actually a unique partnership between the government of Iraq and the private sector, represented by Shell and Mitsubishi. And we are also the largest flare reduction program in the world. And to give you an extent, since we started the operation in 2013 until now, we prevented about 70 million tons of CO2 from going to the atmosphere. And to give you an idea, the size of that, that's equivalent to the emission from a country like Sweden, an industrial country like Sweden. So that is the magnitude of Basra Gas Company. The scope of our operation, what we do, we gather the gas from three giant fields. That's the Rumaila field, Zubair, and West Qurna. We process the gas in our facilities in Khor Zubair and North Rumaila. What we do, we produce the dry gas that we give to the power industry, and the LPG that we provide for domestic use, and then we export the excess of that LPG. And we also we have condensate, or what's called natural gasoline, that at the moment we export. It's a massive operation in terms of scale and size, and it goes throughout Basra. We are an Iraqi company. It's a company that is registered in Iraq. We have over 5,000 of Iraqi employees that are seconded from South Gas Company to Basra Gas, plus a few hundred secondees from Shell. We spend significant amount of time on the capacity building and development of our Iraqi local colleagues. We've delivered over 130,000 man-days of training since we started. And we've established new training academies in production and maintenance, in engineering. We have a new leadership program, and these are all delivered by major reputable international companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers or Franklin Covey on the leadership program. All of that in order to drive the development of our local staff. We've also injected over $2 billion to the local economy. That's in terms of contract, in terms of salaries that we provide into the city of Basra. We, as a company, in terms of gas production, we've increased gas production from what was around 300 million scf when we started to over BCF, 1 BCF, and that's ultimately also increased the amount of LPG that we produce. We deliver about 70% of the LPG requirement for the whole country. And now we exporting. We actually turned the country from a net importer of LPG to now we actually exporting the excess LPG. And as I mentioned, in terms of the CO2, this picture actually gives you an indication in terms of what we've done so far. What you see in those pictures may be not very clear, and this is those circles or those dots that you see, these are actually the flares in 2013, and these are satellite images of those flares. So you'll see the changes in those dots, on the size of those dots in 2018, and that's actually at the beginning of 2018. And you'll see the scope of what BGC has achieved, and those smaller dots is actually now the current sizes of those flares that you see in Basra. And a lot of those actually dots are that you see now in 2018. Since then, it's also been captured. And at this moment, we have practically a project on every single remaining flaring point in those three fields. And hopefully these will eliminate the flaring in the near future. As I mentioned, production is increased to over 1 BCF, and LPG is now, we are exporting since 2016. Actually, we started exporting. The operation itself started small with like $70 million in 2016, and last year we exported over $360 million in export. Now, what is our plan? We have a very ambitious plan. We are investing over $5 billion in our operation at the moment, in focusing in an area of capturing the remaining gas, processing that gas, as well as in the export facilities. As His Excellency this morning mentioned, that we are building currently 2 new NGL plants, and in the process at the moment, the shareholders are discussing a third one. It's still not finalized, but it hopefully will be coming very soon. Our aim ultimately is to reach to our target of 2 BCF, which is what BGC target when it was established. We also have a targeted program. There was a discussion this morning to decrease cost. When we started, our unit operating cost was in the region of $14 per barrel equivalent. We are aiming to bring that to around $5. At the moment, we are around $6 to $7 in terms of unit operating cost. But we are continuously working on reducing that cost as well. Once we completed those projects, Iraq will become one of the largest regional countries in exporting LPG. and will be a major exporter to the Far East. At the moment, we only export to the regional countries, but once these facilities are completed, we will start exporting to countries like Korea, Japan, and China. This to give you an extent on the projects that we've done in the gas capture and the learning that we implemented throughout the project. You could see at the beginning, in 2014, we delivered a compression project that costed us $64 million and took a period of 14 months. A similar project of the same size last year cost us only $18 million, and we delivered it even in a shorter period of time. We have at the moment several projects that are ongoing in terms of gas capture in Rumaila and West Kurna, and some of them will be completed even this year. These are the NGL plants that His Excellency mentioned this morning. These are industry standard. We've actually benchmarked them and with a reputable benchmarking company for projects, and they found that they're actually 42% lower than the average in terms of cost, lower than the average I would say, world NGL plants of that size. And also in terms of delivery, we're aiming to deliver it in 21 months relative to the average of 30 months, which is what's delivered on average for this size of plant. The idea is that actually we built 5 trains, 5 identical trains. We are now building 2. A third one hopefully is coming soon. And depending on the gas availability, then we go with the other 2 trains as well in the near future, I hope. Finally, these are the export facilities. We have a multi-billion-dollar program to rehabilitate our export facilities in Qasr. We have a program to rehabilitate our storage facilities for refrigerated LPG, as well as for the marine terminal to rehabilitate and the jetty facilities and to dredge the marine channel as well, to enable us to basically export the large quantities of products that we would be producing. This is in summary what I wanted actually to give you a brief on BGC. I would be happy to take any questions once the rest of the colleagues finish their presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Plenary. That was great. Mr. Alman Ward, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor to have been asked to say a few words this afternoon about Dana Gas. I have got some slides, so if you could bring those slides up on the screen, please. Thank you. Dana Gas was created in 2005 and IPO'd on the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange to become the leading private sector natural gas company in the MENA region. Our focus from the beginning has been on sustainable growth opportunities in the region, leveraging where possible our strategic relationships to gain competitive advantage, whilst at the same time being committed to developing and operating our assets safely and efficiently. From the beginning, the company has been deeply committed to its core values. I'd like to emphasize the following in this regard. We are deeply committed to the principles of environmental protection, sustainability, and good corporate governance practices. When it was incorporated, the company used IFC guidelines when setting up its corporate governance structure, and we regularly benchmark ourselves to maintain this top quartile rating. From the outset, we've been deeply committed to sustainable development principles, and we have a track record of delivery in this regard in our operations. Dana Gas currently operates in three main areas: Egypt, Iraq, and the UAE. In Egypt, we produce around 35,000 barrels of oil equivalent, operating through three concessions, producing gas, LPG, and condensate. And a 2014 agreement with the government has allowed us to commence export of the majority of that condensate. Since 2007, we've had an exceptional discovery track record. 31 new pool discoveries from 48 exploration wells since 2002 on the Nile Delta, giving a 65% commercial success rate. We continue to hold 2 exploration blocks, 1 offshore block with significant potential, and growth also exists onshore for deeper targets under our existing development leases, and in the adjacent Block 3 concession, which is operated by BP. We hold 100% of the offshore El Arish Block 6, which contains very significant upside potential of around 15 trillion cubic feet of gas in place volumes on an unrisked basis from an extensive prospect inventory. In Iraq, we hold a 35% interest in the Pearl Consortium, whose Khor field is delivering gas at 400 million standard cubic feet per day of gas to 3 power stations, plus over 14,000 barrels per day of condensate and over 1,000 metric tons per day of LPG. That gas production translates into about 2,000 megawatts of power generation. First gas was delivered within 18 months of contract signature, with LPG production starting after a further 18 months in January 2011. There is further growth opportunity in the region for power and industrial consumption, including cement factories, steel manufacturers, and others. A debottlenecking project was completed in October 2018, increasing production by 30%, and a GSA for those additional volumes has already been signed. We have ambitious expansion plans with a project to expand production by a further 500 million standard cubic feet per day of gas. The first 250 million train is scheduled early 2022, and a GSA has also been signed for these volumes. Dana Gas has ambitions to grow its footprint in Iraq, and we pre-qualified for the Iraqi 5th International Bid Round for 2 blocks, although we were ultimately unsuccessful. In the UAE, the founding project for Dana Gas in 2005, and on which the IPO was based, was for the import of 600 million standard cubic feet per day of gas for power generation and industrial use in the northern UAE Emirates, which at that time was short of both. This was a highly ambitious project, as this represented 10% of the UAE's total daily gas consumption. Subsequently, Dana Gas was asked to develop the offshore Zora gas field to produce 40 million standard cubic feet per day of gas by an onshore processing plant to supply clean fuel for power generation in Sharjah. First gas was achieved within 26 months of FID. Dana Gas has 2P reserves of well over 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent, predominantly here in Iraq. Over the years, we have steadily grown production. When DG bought its assets in Egypt in 2007, and as a result of the successful exploration campaign mentioned earlier, we have more than doubled our 2P reserves and increased production by over 50%. Further significant production growth has resulted in the startup of the operations in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, bringing the company's total production close to 70,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day. These examples illustrate how Dana Gas has generated value to its shareholders through M&A activities, successful greenfield growth through exploration, and in consistently delivering first-class development projects. In addition to its upstream assets, Danagas also has interests in a number of midstream and downstream assets in the region. So where does that leave Danagas today? In Egypt, we produced 34,100 barrels of oil equivalent per day in the first half of this year, and we are now one of the top 5 gas producers in the country. In the Kurdistan region of Iraq, our 35% share in the Pearl Consortium resulted in our share of production in the first half of the year as being over 32,400 barrels of oil equivalent. We have 2 world-class gas fields, which we believe to hold the largest gas reserves in the country. We have a track record of 10 years of continuous production, despite the many challenges that we have faced over that period, and we now supply 3 major power stations as well as industry. We are MENA's largest independently listed natural gas-focused E&P company and deliver consistent, strong financial results. In the first half of 2019, we had over $240 million of revenues and made $140 million of net profit, and finished the first half of the year with over $400 million of cash reserves. I would like to finish by touching once again upon Danagas's ESG commitments. We have a track record of delivery with huge economic and environmental impact and social benefits. To use our operations in the Kurdistan region of Iraq over the last 10 years as an example, our gas has displaced far dirtier and more expensive diesel for power generation. Provision of our gas has enabled greater electrification of the region, which in turn has generated material GDP growth of over or between $10 and $20 billion. KRI power supply has expanded 106%. Nearly 30 million tons of CO2 has been abated by substituting diesel for gas, the equivalent of about 6 million cars. We have saved the KRG over $20 billion of costs by substituting cheap gas for expensive diesel. 20,000 jobs have been created, 80% of which are locally staffed, of which over 2,000 have been permanent. We are entering into an expansion phase which will dramatically increase these societal benefits, in fact, more than double them. The abundance of gas reserves has also given the region confidence in the long-term availability of this power supply, and investments can be made in the full knowledge that power will be made available thanks to natural gas. I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to familiarize you with Danagas and our ambitions in the region. We have a track record of delivering on our promises, and we look forward to further growing our business interests here in Iraq. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Next up is Mr. Al-Qadri. Stage.
Presentation.
Yeah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I wanted to shift the focus today on something that I believe my peers tried to highlight, but they did not get deep into it. And usually I start my presentation by trying to wow the customer, and since I don't have a lot of time today, I have like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, so I decided to start with shocking you. Shocking you, why? Because I want to ask you, like, what are the percentage you think of the companies, Fortune 500 company that closed since 2000, since year 2000? If it's less than 20, please raise your hand. If it's less than 40, please raise your hand. If it's more than 50, please raise your hand. Actually, more than 52% of the Fortune companies worldwide, they closed since 2000, and this is because of the pressure of the digital business models. This is no exception to anybody, and we have seen also this is coming big time also to the oil and gas. We are seeing a lot of shifts. We are seeing Shell trying to be the #1 electricity company in the world. We are seeing also that Total trying to have one of the first places in solar energy. Another thing, like from the 10 companies, from the Fortune 10 companies, I think I need to go back. Oops. From the 10 companies worldwide, how many you think there are in oil and gas on top of the 10 Fortune companies? Anybody want to guess? Yeah, Nisreen? Sorry, I have to apologize. 0. None of the oil and gas company are part of the 10 companies. You hear Amazon, Google, Microsoft, $1 trillion value. 10 years before that was totally different. It was ExxonMobil. All of these big names, they were on that one. So I wanted to start with this one to, sorry, that's the presentation. Can you restart the presentation? Yes. I think I flipped too many slides by mistake. I apologize for this. Yeah. So this is done. And this is actually we are at the very start of the 4th industrial revolution, if you heard about it, Industry 4.0. What does it mean for oil and gas? Like all these digital transformation, as we know, like they started with media, retail, and mobility businesses, because these were much easier from a digital business models. And good news for Iraq, the digital transformation for the oil and gas just started, so frankly, you did not miss a lot. You can ride the wave from the beginning. Why the digital transformation? Like the potential is huge, as per the World Economic Forum and Accenture and the other consulting companies. We are talking about a huge potential of 1.5 to $2.5 trillion just by applying digital technology that we are hearing about, like the buzzwords, cloud, IoT, and blockchain, and all of that in the oil and gas. My colleagues talked about the trends. They talked about like the prices of the oil and how this is affecting our life. They are talking about like a lot of things, the shift to the circular economy, how to be agile and all of that. And for the sake of time, I want to focus only for my presentation on the industry trends, and the last one, which is digital, like to enable the digital transformation and becoming intelligent energy. To become an intelligent energy company, like it means intelligently connecting people, things, and processes, and business. And this is like leveraging all the machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, augmented reality, all of this. And this is coming very strong in the oil and gas. This is what we are hearing from our customers. We are working closely with Shell, with Accenture, BP, on all of the big players, as well as the regional player on adopting the latest technologies. This is the vision of the companies that we are working with. It sounds very, very simple, like deliver safe, reliable, and sustainable. We heard it also from the panel here today and from the other panels also as well. Focus on the customer and enabled by innovation. This is what they told us. It sounds very simple, and in fact, actually, it's not that easy. It requires a lot of decision making. It requires a lot of changes. I want to share with you some of the statistics. I'll not go to all of them. 30% of manufacturers are predicted to use innovation marketplace by 2022. This is like a couple of years from now. 50% of manufacturers predict to network related products and assess digital twins into the other company. That means like you are taking the fence of your company, and when you buy an asset, let's say from GE, a turbine, or from Siemens, you would like to exchange this information with them to make sure that your assets are working very efficiently. Especially we heard like there are assets that are 40 years old here in Iraq. So this is the end-to-end value chain. And last year at the Baghdad International Fairs here, I had the pleasure to meet with all of the oil and gas company here in Iraq. And I believe they represent the complete value chain. When I say the complete value chain of the oil and gas, I'm talking about supply, logistic, refining, marketing, logistics, and retail as well. So we call it well-to-wheel. This is all represented here in Iraq. This is a traditional oil and gas silo value chain that companies, they don't talk to each other, they are not integrated, they don't share common knowledge, and it will be impossible to track the oil on a molecule level across the value chain. The good news is like this is changing, and this is like the digital energy value stream that we see like happening and happening soon also. It's already there in place. We believe like the digital energy value stream will be connected, integrated, and intelligent, and I'll highlight like during the discussion. The intelligent enterprise, we are talking about like we are going away from vertical integrated functions. That mean like projects will not be, or let's say like South Iraq or North Iraq and so on. We are seeing like the grouping will be on a function, like connected all the assets around an ecosystem, a business digital ecosystem around a certain function. So we are talking about like connected oil fields and upstream. And for the session of today, since we are talking about like gas and downstream, connected hydrocarbon logistics and connected workforce, connected customers, and connected projects. This is the trend that we are seeing, and this is the intelligent energy company of the future, and we are working very close with a lot of companies to transform them from the siloed into this integrated intelligent. I have a lot of slides like this. I will only talk about the refinery part of it, the downstream as the focus of today. Just connecting hydrocarbon logistics, having visibility into the supply chain and into the inventory. You are talking about like anticipating a 2% increase in refining margin. This is very big number for refinery, knowing refinery are very sensitive when it comes to margin. And 6% decrease in hydrocarbon inventory, sorry. These are the value drivers, and inventory is cash, as we know. The same slides we have like for connected projects, connected assets, and operation. This is why most of the oil and gas companies, they are trying to transform to become an intelligent enterprise. Thank you. This is my slides for today.
Sorry. Thank you so much. Next, last but not least, is Mr. Jafar. Please take the stage.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank the Iraq Energy Forum for this honor to organize this amazing event in our wonderful capital, Baghdad. I am actually going to move away from talking technicality about gas and so on into the provision of services that the operators and the investors need in country in order to deliver on their projects and investments. And I'm going to start by introducing my company, which is Field Energy Services. And I'm going to make it very, very short, mindful that it's been a long day for most of you, and you need to get probably out in the sun of Baghdad. Field Energy Services is a 100% Iraqi company that was established in 2008 and have offices throughout Iraq. The main operation centers are in the south, in Basra. We have on our books as full-time employees, about 500, but I believe third party, we employ through third party about 1,500, if not more. We run 6 business units, mainly in Basra. We've ventured out into KRG. We serve about, I would say, 80 clients plus IOCs and service providers, mainly all of the IOCs in Iraq. And we have invested about $60 million in our facilities in Basra mainly and in KRG. Now, somebody might ask, I'm sure the vast majority would ask, why would a young, small company come here to Iraq and invest $60 million odd in building capacity and building facilities? The reason why we've decided to actually brave the storm of the security and the upheaval and government changes and so on is because we believe in Iraq. I'm from Basra in the south, and I actually love my town. We decided to look at the market in 2009, and we felt that there's a massive gap in the provision of services that the gentlemen, especially BGC and BP and the like, would require. And the challenges, beside the socioeconomics, and we all know the challenges of security and the challenges of legislation, lack of legislation rather, never dissuades us from actually investing, even at the worst times when ISIS were controlling about a third of the country. And the challenge is the challenge we identify is the 3 main challenges, and namely is the number one, which is the lack of skilled labor in the Iraqi market, which we have tackled via investing in state-of-the-art training center, which is now being used by the majority of the IOCs in Iraq. This training center was built in Rumaila, and the statement we wanted to give, although the land we occupy is leased from the Basra Oil Company on short-term leases, the message we wanted to give to our client and indeed to the community is we are there to stay. So we set out building a brick and mortar 2-story training center that is, that matches any training center you see in Iraq at the moment. So, closing the gap of unskilled workforce that is needed was done through investment in in-house training, and we are carrying on. Now we're selling the training to, as I said, to major IOCs, beside training our own staff. The second major challenge is convincing the IOCs that we are a small, young Iraqi company, convincing them that we can actually deliver. This was a major stumbling block. And we set out trying to convince major OEMs and service provider to partner with us and to convince them that we are the right Iraqi partners. Now, this was a very difficult task. We did this by investing in state-of-the-art facilities in both Berjisiya and Rumaila. Rumaila is to cover, as you know, the BP, Exxon, and Lukoil, and Berjisiya to cover BGC and ENI. And we were very successful in really attracting the best of OEMs. And today we are proud to say that we have partnership with, I'm not going to mention the names, but I'm willing to share them with you individually if you want, in case some of them get upset if I forget them. But in short, today we have managed to attract all those OEMs, managed to get them to convince them to share with us their technology and their IP, because this is very, very sensitive when it comes to companies. And today we are basically competing with companies in Iraq, in the south, that have probably been in the business for over 100 years. And we are managing to beat them in their game, and beat them very, very satisfactorily. The third challenge sorry, I just forgot the third one. Just let me, the third challenge is the availability of accredited facilities. So again, we invested heavily in having our workshops accredited, and I'm very, very proud to say that today our workshops have managed to acquire the ISO 9001, ISO 14001, 18001, and most importantly, API quality, monogram Q1, and API 6A and 16A, which in Iraq, I think there are two more, or even one, actually, company, which is an international, very old company. So in short, there is no shortcuts when it comes to building capabilities by Iraqi companies. At the end of the day, the IOCs have been very supportive. Today, we have, 2 years ago, we had no contract with any of the IOCs. Today, we have major contracts with BGC, for example. We have a contract to rehabilitate the equipment of the export facilities, in addition to the rotating equipment. So BGC actually put their faith in us and given us all their rotating equipment. This is basically the heart of their operation. So we maintain, we keep them running, we repair them, and we retrofit them. Also with BP, we have two major projects going on at the moment. Again, long-term projects, 3+2 years, to deliver maintenance, repair of rotating equipment, and so on. With the drilling companies, now we are in the process of finalizing an agreement with Iraq Drilling Company to actually, again, supply them with state-of-the-art equipment and repair their equipment to a standard whereby the operator are happy with. So the message is Iraq is an amazing country. Iraq is sustainable. Security we've seen all of you guys here, which is quite encouraging. Security is very, very good. It's improved tremendously, and we need to attract more Iraqis to invest in their country. Now, this has to be done through legislation, through encouragement by the IOCs and the operators to basically give the Iraqis a chance, because this is the only sustainable solution for the support of all the IOCs. So with this, I'll close. I know I'm not going to take much of your time, but I again thank you, IEF, and I'm willing to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We do have some time left, so I'm going to ask a question to each of our panelists, and then I will open it up to the floor, so you can attack them with your questions too after. My first question is for Dr. Amadi. In your presentation, you mentioned the importance of renewables. I'm wondering, from your perspective, what might the ministry or the government be able to do? And we heard a nice example earlier today with solar power. What other measures might the government take in order to make investment in renewables attractive to companies? Oh, here.
Thank you. This is a really very important question. Renewable industry becomes a fact, and therefore it is very important that we have to develop a renewable industry in this transition period. There is no industry in Iraq, renewable industry in Iraq. There is some kind of activities here and there, and despite the fact we started renewables activities in 70s and 80s, but because of what happened in Iraq during the last 30 years, we lost the initiative to develop this really the industry, and also we lost that people understand this industry and this activity. I think in the last 2-3 years there is some kind of activities by the private sector and civil societies and institutions, plus the government. So there is, they try to make a collective effort to develop this industry. The most of activity regarding this, or the chance to develop this, one of the types of this industries is solar business. In the solar business, really, there is photovoltaics industry and thermal industry. So some of them apply to houses and buildings, and other mega projects apply for electricity rigs. All in all, I think we need to develop this industry as soon as possible. We need to develop the regulation. We need to develop the how to finance, the way we finance this industry, some kind of subsidies, I think is required, and also fourth, you have to follow the latest development, because what's happening now in the renewable industries, all type of renewables, is innovations, and innovation is very important. In each month, 2 months, there is a new technology in the solar and wind industry. Imagine 40% of electricity in Denmark come from wind industry. In Arab countries, there is now 2, 3, 4 countries that are in front, United Arab Emirates and Jordan, which is in Jordan, really the percentage of renewable energy in electricity, a very large percentage, really. And also Egypt started, and also Morocco. As I said, in Iraq, we need to, from Ministry of Electricity and Planning Ministry, and also with the support of Oil Ministry, to develop this industry. This industry will, the benefit of this industry will reduce, it is free, and just the cost of establishing the project, and then after that the cost will be zero after it's covered its cost. So if we say electricity, renewable energy and gas for electricity, if this slogan was adopted now, within 15 years, maybe the energy, renewable energy and gas will cover all the electricity fuel. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. My next question is for Mr. O'Clain. I have a wild question for you, actually. So there's a lot of gas flaring that goes on beyond, the big three that's covered by BGC. I wonder if you envision a future in which BGC might, expand to encompass more fields. Is that something that's being discussed right now, and what might that look like? How might that happen?
Thank you, Samia. I think you heard His Excellency this morning also mentioning other projects that are starting to take place in Halfaya and Nasiriyah.
Yeah.
So these are projects that beyond BGC, of course, to capture that flared gas. Already in BGC, we capture some of these small fields that are not connected elsewhere, that they come also to BGC. The BGC agreement automatically allows BGC to basically attract any other gas that the government would like us to capture, of course, if it is efficient and economically attractive in that. So I see the whole South actually becomes an integrated network or series of hubs in order to cover all the gas that's produced in the South.
Okay, cool. Mr. Almond-Ward, in your presentation you said that Dana Gas has an interest in growing its footprint in Iraq, and I have a two-part question for you. The first is, why, from an investor's point of view, is gas attractive in Iraq right now? And following that, what are the challenges that, investors such as yourself who have this interest might continue to face, that might kind of get in the way of exploring that interest, of expanding that footprint?
Well, our interest in gas in Iraq really arose from the opportunity to access two very large fields with huge resource potential. And at that time, should we say that Iraq was not a preferred investment destination for many companies. So it was a window of opportunity, if you like. I personally believe that gas has a really important role to play in the energy transition, and we need to take coal to gas substitution as fast as we can, but also gas for oil product substitution, frankly, because gas is the cleanest burning fuel for power generation, and there is an abundant and cheap supply of it. So I think there's a great opportunity for gas. Iraq, of course, is a country with huge gas resources, still undeveloped, and so there's a huge potential investment space here for gas. And your second part of the question? What challenges do you continue to face? Well, gas is of course more complicated than oil. Oil is a fully fungible commodity. You produce it, you take it to market, you sell it. Whereas gas is a far more complex value chain, and you have to get all of the elements of that value chain linked up before you can essentially get started. So clearly, it's not just the usual subsurface, surface challenges that you face, but you also then have the commercial challenges of putting gas sales agreements in place for those volumes. And to some extent, this is an iterative problem, because if you go to a customer and say, I've got this huge resource of gas, they're going to say, well, go and get a certification to prove it. And you go to your certifiers and they say, well, give me the gas sales agreement to show that you've got a monetization plan for it. So there's a certain amount of iteration that you need to go through in order to be able to solve that catch-22. But obviously it's feasible, and we've done that with respect to our gas resources in northern Iraq. Right.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Al-Qadri, I was really interested in your presentation. You mentioned that Iraq, or companies in Iraq, will be able to ride the wave of becoming more digitally intelligent. I'm wondering, where do you see room for improvement, as Iraq attempts to, take full advantage of the benefits of this. And in a situation where there are still bureaucracies that are very paper dependent, do you see that at all as limiting, this very important kind of phase for the functioning of companies?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've been working with the regional companies here for the past 1 year, and I've been engaged myself in a lot of projects, like transformation projects earlier, and I gained a lot of experience and lessons learned from these software projects, because software projects are not easy, like digital projects are not easy. You cannot describe them, you can only describe what are the outcomes, and the only way to see it is when it's happening. It's not like in construction where you can describe the building, 5 floor, and all of that. In software, it's totally different. It's more outcome based. When it comes to, when I said like about Iraq, I wasn't exaggerating, and I have a real example in this life. The digital transformation in the oil and gas, as an oil and gas started now, like we did not miss a lot. Like there is, we heard like from the country manager of BP that they are using RTDBs. Most of the region here, they are using RTDBs. The only difference are they are using ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. Last year and this year we had several meetings with oil and gas, Basra Oil and Gas Company, North Oil and Gas companies, even we met with them in Dubai, and we asked them like what is the main challenge. The main challenge was exactly said as you said, like they are using paperwork.
Yeah.
And just to start with automating the paperwork into a paperless work, this is a big achievement. This will unlock a lot of issues, and this will create more clarity, and they will be able to elaborate on a company level as well as on Ministry of Oil level. What I learned from my 20 years experience in this region, especially, like don't go for big bang approach. We are not equipped in this region here to go for a big bang approach. Even name the biggest company like Aramco, if they go for a big bang approach, 50% that this project will not see the light, or they will not meet all the objective schedule, budget and time. So I would say like think about the issues, like as we said, like if they're still using paperwork, let's automate that paperwork. Let's focus on the digital core, as we call it in SAP, like finance, HR, the total workforce management, which are key challenges that we see, and we are hearing still, even with matured companies, and they will start taking it like on the core oil and gas itself. This is, if it's answer your question.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Al-Jafar. You said that one of the primary challenges for your company was to convince IOCs that you can deliver. I find that very interesting, especially in Iraq today, where there's a big discussion going on around the importance of private sector investment to grow small and medium-sized companies such as yours. I'm wondering, apart from the pressure or the challenges you face from IOCs, I mean, what other challenges did you face just by virtue of being, a company in Iraq which has very specific or lack of certain legislations that make it easy for private companies to flourish? Did you face challenges from that perspective as well? And if you did, what recommendations might you have for that?
The main challenge we faced, and I understand the fear of, we're going back to the lack of experience. As you know, in Iraq, the post-Saddam, there hasn't really, there aren't any Iraqi companies of any magnitude of experience that have been developed if you like, pre-2003. The entire industry was controlled by the Ministry of Oil, which has tens of various companies. So it's a very much like a social communist of regime. Now we came in, and it was very difficult to convince, for example, the NOC, the National Oil Company, to use us, because again, the NOC's mindset is we can do it all, because they've been doing it like that for tens of years, for decades. Now, when the first round of licenses came about, and BP were the first to hit the ground, we felt there's a chance there. But again, we understand that we don't have the credentials to show that we can actually deliver. So it hasn't been a very, very difficult task, but it is laborious. We needed to be patient. We needed to get our accreditation, which took about a year, 2 years. We needed to invest. So it's like a chicken and egg syndrome. Are we going to invest in a country $60 million, or we didn't invest $60 million in one day, obviously, it was gradual. Or shall we get a partner to invest? And as you know, capital is very, very difficult to get into Iraq by the various service providers. So eventually the operators, again, mindful of the fact that they have to give a chance to the Iraqis, they did. And we delivered. Now, before doing that, we needed to show them that we can actually attract the right technical partners, because those guys who are either original equipment manufacturers or service providers, who again thought, well, this is a good partner to be in. I don't have to invest in Iraq. I can actually sell technology to those guys. I can actually support them. And this is music to those companies' ears, because they actually make more money and safely than coming into Iraq. So, but because we've been so patient and so, if you like, forward-thinking, today we are inundated with demands. I mean, really, we have grown exponentially over the past 2 years. Actually, over the past 3 years, even during the uncertain time of ISIS being here, we kept on expanding. We kept on buying, state-of-the-art machineries. We actually, as a matter of fact, we got our accreditation, the API accreditation, which cost us a few $1 million, of obviously equipment and training our staff during the height of the battle with ISIS. So anyway, basically the reward, now we are reaping the reward of what we've done. And again, we are probably recruiting at the rate of 30 to 40 people a month. So it has been a great success. My only, now I'm from Basra. I would love to see many companies like us, even competing with us. It's a healthy environment, but there are very few. And I think we need to support those guys, especially the small ones, through a banking system, through loans. I'm aware that the central bank have launched an initiative to support SMEs with about $1 billion. It's a good start. It's a good start. But we need to get those guys, and we're actually willing as a company to create our own competitors. We are willing to bring them to our workshops, those young entrepreneurs, and say, this is how we do it. But obviously we need the help of the IOCs in supporting us, the help of people like the Big Four, for example, to just acquaint those guys with business.
Right. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, of course.
So really, a couple of comments. One on Patrick's highlighted the complexity of the gas value chain, and you gave the example of the commercial aspect. And I wanted actually to highlight another aspect.
Could you just speak into the mic a little bit?
Sorry. Yeah, His Excellency this morning, quite rightly, when the talk was about power generation, he said, yeah, but do not forget transmission and distribution. And I think the similar challenge would be for gas, as the gas capture is increasing and the power generation, these power plants, new power plants is being built. There need to be significant attention on the transmission and distribution of the gas to those power plants. Because if you do not have that network, you would end up having the gas stranded, and you will not be able to provide those power plants.
Right.
And the other comment actually on Mr. Ala Jafar comments, it's really, again, there was a lot of talk about it this morning. It's how to be relevant to the society and the country that you work in. And it's a strategy that you make, and my friend Zaid also talked this morning about BP strategy. From the beginning, we decided to be relevant to the society, we need to work with the local contractors, with the local service providers that we have in the South. And of course, you have two choices. Most of them, when we assessed them, they were red banded in terms of HSE, some with regard to quality as well. So you have a choice, either abandon them and go on and bring in foreign or international contractors, or actually work with them and support them in order to improve their HSE performance, and which is what we've chosen at the end. And now we have about 87% of our implementation contractors are Iraqi companies working with us. They've been working with us and since actually we've started, and they developed with us as well.
Right, very interesting. We have just less than, or a little bit, 10 minutes for questions from the floor. So anyone have questions? Don't all jump at once, come on. No, I don't see any hands, so I think that I will conclude this session. Thank you so much. Thank you.